Okay, folks, we are back, and because you guys know that I hate clickbait and whatnot, I'm just gonna say the two things right now, and then explain them in more detail afterwards. The first thing you're gonna do is take all of the questions from every single school that you're applying to, dump them to a single Google Doc or Word document or whatever, and go through them and extract 3 to 7 core underlying questions that are being asked by all of these different questions. And of course, there's going to be some outliers that don't really get covered, but as you go through these questions, you're going to see that essentially these schools are all asking you the same thing, the same fundamental questions to get to know you as an applicant. And they're just putting a different spin on it according to whatever way that they do their own application. So get those underlying questions extracted, and then you can move on to the second part, which is create another running document that essentially you're going to create where you're going to compile all of your free writing or all of your musings about these generalized responses in a single place. So that way you don't lose it. You get to see how your own intuition for these things have developed over time. And you'll have basically just a running doc that, like, if you've ever done like a multiple draft process, it's easy to kind of extract previously written stuff rather than trying to vomit it out on the fly. So this is just, think of it like as the pre-draft process to your actual essays. So those are the two things. I'm going to explain them a little bit more now. The first thing, the whole extract the generalized or the generalizable questions. It's important, especially if you're somebody who's like a non-traditional student who's already in classes, or you're working a full-time job, or even worse, you're in classes and working a full-time job, which I know a lot of you guys are. You need to be really careful with your time, and I know it can kind of seem like, well, why would I start if I'm starting this early? Shouldn't I be getting like words on the paper? You're not going to be the same applicant in February or March when you submit the application. Like, things are going to change between now and then, so to completely commit yourself to an essay right now and constrain yourself is maybe not the best move. This way, when you have these generalized questions and you have that running document that shows your own writings that are dated, obviously keep them in chronological order, it will help you see your own evolution over time. It's just like a journaling practice, but also just makes you more aware of your own motivations, and it really just helps you get a more authentic understanding of what your actual intentions and motivations are. So that's like the main focus of like why we want to use this strategy, especially early on, because if you do this for a couple of months, you're not going to be wasting your time. One, because you're early enough in the process that whatever you write down now in like terms of like a concrete essay might not be the best representation of you in 6 months from now. So you're not constraining yourself in that sense, but also you're giving yourself, if anything, the most ammunition to work with when you're starting to approach these 6 or 7 different applications, each with like 5 to 6 questions. You'll already have, not obviously not 100% of the way there, but you'll have 80% of the main bulk of the questions or the underlying intuition that you need to answer those questions. Because once again, they're all asking, these schools are asking you the same questions. They're just asking you to answer it in different ways. Some are more cute than the others. Some are very literal, but it's really the same stuff. So this is kind of like, just think of it as an initial investment of time that helps you sort of maximize or leverage your efforts later on down the road. So with that being said, I know that a lot of people struggle with just getting words on paper in the first place. So I want to have some additional sort of practical additional exercises that you can use to kind of help get this process actually rolling. Because it's one thing to talk about it and to think about this strategy in and of itself, but the actual tactical implementation of it can sometimes be difficult. And if you can't do that, then there's no way you're going to use the strategy. So for the folks like myself who sometimes will sit there at like a blinking cursor for minutes or hours on end, or sit there with a pen on paper and have your pen dry out because you're not writing anything, these 2 exercises are for you. So the first one is to set a 15-minute timer. You're setting 3 5-minute timers actually, and of course you can kind of scale this if it seems too long or if it seems too short, but 15 minutes seems to be the time that works for a lot of people. So let's say you're approaching one of these generalized questions. Let's say that it's just, for example, like tell me about it, or like talk about something that like makes you excited about learning, or like why academics are important to you. The first thing you're gonna do is set a timer for 5 minutes and just write single words. Just anything that comes to mind, just general word association. So you're like, okay, like learning, think about like science. I think about Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think about the cosmos. I think about Bill Nye. You just like start throwing things on there, and it doesn't have to make any sense. It really doesn't. It's just to put things on paper, and then after that 5 minutes expires, you're going to look over those words that you wrote, and then you're going to go into phrases. And of course, if you feel like you're warmed up at this point and you can just start writing, like just doing a free write, then go into the free write. But if you're still feeling like I'm having a tough time, like trying to get into the headspace, start with phrases. Like, very short phrases, like 3 to 5 words. You can be like, that time that I looked smart in at trivia night, or the time I impressed my girlfriend's dad with my obscure knowledge of diesel engines, something like that. Like any of these things will work, and then from there you can actually apply whatever those phrases are into a larger free write. So once again, any duration of time for each of those is basically just to get you warmed up and get you into the headspace where you have some sort of free flowing creativity. It's just a very it seems really simple, and it is, but I've never seen it not work. And of course, you might not like what comes out the other side. Like you might think that your free write sucks, and for a lot of them, it probably will. But that's not the point. The point is just to get shit down on paper, and then as you sort of do this over the course of weeks, you can start looking back on these free writes and extracting whatever you find useful. And of course, having that singular document that has all of these free writes in it will really help you just organize everything and be able to extract things quickly. The next thing that helps is, and actually one of the participants in the office hours has I believe a cousin who is an author who also uses this technique, but essentially it's rather than writing, it's using voice memos, because a lot of us find it easier to talk than it is, or so there's something about writing sometimes that there's like some sort of finality to it. It makes you sort of feel like whatever you've written you've committed to, and I think there is some like legitimate psychology to that, but generally speaking, a lot of people find it easier to have a stream of consciousness through talking. So if you're finding it tough to write, just throw on a voice memo and just talk. Just completely talk about whatever, and then you can either transcribe it or re-listen to it and then try to extract the wisdom out of that the same way you would do with a free write. So that's not a very like let's say fancy or complicated exercise, but it's something that's very simple that people don't utilize and actually is like, tremendously beneficial. So definitely don't overlook that as a potential option. So to recap, the first thing you can do is to use a single word, then phrase, then free write for any period of time. So you have the timer, so you can kind of see the time expiring, and then it kind of keeps the sense of urgency up. And then the voice memo approach, where you just vocalize your stream of consciousness, and then hopefully that will help you actually get something materialized. If you're having a tough time, even like using that previous exercise, getting anything down on paper. So the big point here is any sort of like introspection or any sort of like thought that goes into like you as a person and why you want to do this whole annoying process of applying as a transfer student. It's not wasted time, but at the same time, it's probably helpful to be as efficient and as cognizant as you can with your own time constraints, because all of us are busy, and adding application stuff on top of your already busy schedule is probably not an easy thing to do. So we want to be efficient and smart with it. So that's really it. Hopefully there's something in there that can help you guys. If you have any interesting writing exercises or thoughts of your own, please put them in the comments or share them. Come to the office hours and share them with other participants there. But that really sums up the two main things that I would do, and I also did, and I'm encouraging other people to do before you even start writing your actual essays. So hopefully that's helpful. I will see you guys at another time. I'm sticking true to my word. More frequent uploads. We'll see how long I can sustain this. Okay, yeah. All right, bye.